All Things Conceivable, a surrogacy podcast with Nazca Fontes.
Listeners, welcome. Thanks for joining me in All Things Conceivable podcast. And I have a very special guest today. And I have to say, one of the big questions that I always get asked every time I share what I do professionally, that burning question is, why would a woman be a surrogate? So I'm sure for many of our listeners, you have that same question. You're wondering why it is that a woman decides to become a gestational surrogate. Well, for over 25 years, we've been helping people here at Conceivabilities grow their families. And in all of those years, I'm never not amazed by how incredible and special these women really are. Truly. And today we have one of those special women with us. We have Sam Matthews. She's a surrogate who has successfully completed a surrogacy journey very recently by delivering a beautiful baby boy on behalf of her intended family. And if you're a TikTok user, you might even have experienced or come across her channel known as We Are Dan and Sam. So Sam, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
One of the things that I have found by spending a lot of time on your TikTok channel, which I adore, is that you and your husband and two young children are currently traveling the U.S. in an RV. Is that right?
Yes. So we hit the road. I think I was 3.5 weeks postpartum. We love adventure and travel, and we just figured, why not hit the road? It was a good transition from surrogacy, which I can talk about later. But yeah, we have two young kids. Canyon is 6 now, and Ember is 4. We just added a puppy to the family, and so we are loving just sightseeing and hitting different states.
You're also homeschooling your children.
Yes, I am. Oh my gosh, a week and a half in. I love the flexibility of it.
When did you first become interested in the idea of becoming a surrogate?
Yeah, so I had our youngest, Ember, in March of 2018, and I loved being pregnant. We felt done with our family. We had a boy, we had a girl, but I still desired to be pregnant. And so I just kind of, brushed it off. Was talking with a friend one day and she's like, are you guys going to have more kids? I'm like, I think we're good, but I would love to be pregnant again. I'm like, is that a weird feeling? She was like, no, you need to become a surrogate. I was like, I actually thought about that the other day, haven't looked into it. And so we talked about it a little bit. I did some more research.
Did you have that moment where
Yes.
you felt like we're in a good spot, the time is right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm a big believer too in like the timing of things. You just have to make sure, you have the right support and different things are in place before, because it's a big journey.
Surrogates actually do call it a calling.
It is definitely a calling to where someone, you have to have the mental strength for it, the physical strength, the spiritual strength to it. My body's able to, then why not help someone else? We get one life on this earth and I want to use it for good. Feeling led to do something and following through with it is such a great feeling.
Tell me how you decided you wanted to share your journey on TikTok.
Yeah, so at the time we were already sharing our life on social media. We had for about a year, I think a year and a half at that time, just about life, motherhood. We were renovating RVs at the time. We lived in our RV. And so it just made sense to continue sharing it. And we're very big on sharing the good and the bad in life because, life isn't always peaches and cream. There's things that go wrong. And so we shared, the ups and the downs of stuff. But whenever we started the journey, I looked to social media for, okay, how can I prepare for this? What can I expect? And I found one woman that I followed and that was it. And, I found some articles, but there wasn't someone that I followed from start to end. And I was like, dang, how great would that be for us to share our journey from matching to delivery and just share the good and the bad, the shots, the appointments, the feelings, the emotions, the excitement, the joy, to share it all in hopes that it would be encouragement to someone else. I never felt like we were oversharing just because it's stuff that's relatable. It's stuff that people want to know. We never wanted to be like, oh, surrogacy is perfect and it's so easy. And once you start, you end up with, a healthy delivery. Every pregnancy is different. Every surrogacy journey is different. Every matching process is different. And so each step of the way, we're just honest that, hey, for us, this is how we're handling it. This is how it's going. And so I I felt like whenever we would share it, it allowed us, like we were vulnerable in our feelings. It opened the door for people to message and come forward and say, hey, thank you so much for sharing, because it's allowed me to have hope that there's a surrogate out there that can carry our baby. Or thank you so much for sharing, because as a surrogate, I was nervous. I wanted to do this, or I'm doing it for our sister, but I was nervous. But you gave me hope and encouragement that, it's going to be okay. And, just something to look forward to. And so the good definitely outweighed the bad when it came to sharing.
Your husband is featured quite a bit in your content. So how did you talk
Yeah.
to him about wanting to be a surrogate, and how did he decide to become so involved also in your content?
Yeah. So I brought it up to him, back in 2018. I was like, hey, so we're done having kids. I really liked pregnancy. I like labor, which he's like, yes, I know. And I was like, what is your thought of, us doing surrogacy? And he was like, we're not giving our baby away. And I'm like, well, I explained to him traditional versus gestational, that it's not our baby. He did some more research. And after about a week of talking about it, praying about it, he was like, all right, I'm on board. Let's do this. And so just making sure he understood what all he was getting into, because I knew that I would need his support in not only labor, in delivery. I need him there, and to hold my hand and tell me I can do it. But throughout the journey, I'm not a needles person. I hate shots, so I needed his full support on giving me my nightly progesterone shots. It's an emotional journey, and so I needed his strength for that. And so I wanted to make sure that he was okay and comfortable with me doing it, and be able to be that full support that I need. And so whether one has a husband or a spouse or partner or a friend or sibling that can be that for them, it's so important, because pregnancy alone is is crazy and emotional. And then throw on the top just the journey as a whole. It's just a lot. And so having that is really important. But yeah, through making content for the years, we've tried to just keep each other involved, and we kind of laugh sometimes because it tends to be the Sam show on We Are Dan and Sam. So I'm like, I gotta bring him in to hold up his part of the name. But it was fun, and it was relatable, and just encouraging other couples who are going through surrogacy, hey, get your spouse involved, get your partner involved, and do it as a team. And because I need him, and he wants to be there for me. And so it just made it more fun to share in that way with each other.
What are the 5 things, Sam, that you would
Oh
never
my
do as a
gosh.
surrogate?
The 5 things I would never do as a surrogate. I almost want to say like tie it to social media. Like, I feel like I said I would never post myself in my underwear online. And I'm like in my pregnant belly in my Calvin Klein set, showing like milestones. I was like, oh great, did that. I said I would never give myself a shot because I would not be able to handle it. And oh my gosh, I had to do it one night. Dan was away at an event, and my friend was busy, and I was like, oh no, I have to do this. I went on live on TikTok. Like 800 people were watching me as I did it. I almost passed out, but I did it. What else? I've oh my gosh, talked about condoms online and how awkward it is, but it's relatable, like awkward buying them, and then everyone's staring at you, and then you're buying like condoms / you're buying pregnancy test at the same time. Like, like what are people thinking?
Oh, that's funny.
With people, congratulating you on your pregnancy, and you're like, oh, actually, it's not mine. And then, they look at my husband, and they're like, okay. And he's like, it's not mine either. And then everyone's just confused. So, so many different things.
I love it. I love it. I'd love to hear from you a little bit about the relationship that you built with your intended family.
Our first journey, we matched with them, started meds. My uterine lining wasn't thickening, so we were about to start a second med cycle when they got pregnant naturally. Her pregnancy went so well, and it was perfect after years of loss. And they delivered their healthy baby girl in September of 2021. And so it was amazing just connecting with them and hearing their story and going through the journey with them, but then seeing, their story unfold in that way. And we still keep in touch, and I follow them on social media, and so it's so cool just to see their family together and their cute daughter. And so that was fun. We matched with our second set of intended parents for our first full journey, and we went down to where they live and visited them. They met the kids, and so it was nice just to meet them as a family, meet their family. We met their parents, and they connected with the kids, and excited to just start the journey with them and to be a part of their life. We did desire an open relationship, which I think is important to talk about when someone decides to start a journey is, do you want an open or closed relationship? Because some surrogates just want to deliver the baby and kind of move on with life, or some intended parents just kind of want that separation. And so talking about that is important. And so we wanted to, stay in touch as much as possible. I think the journey was more emotional and weighing than they anticipated. And so they just kind of asked for a little bit of space, and we wanted to respect that. And so through the pregnancy journey, we just updated them on things that were important and how baby was doing, just being receptive to each other's feelings and open and communicating, like a marriage, or you want to have that communication and talk about it and learn from each other. And so it's the same with the journey.
How did you describe or explain surrogacy to your own children?
So they were 3 and 4 when we matched with them, and we just said, hey, mommy and daddy have some friends who can't have a baby. Do you think it'd be nice if mommy has a baby for them? And they're like, oh yeah, is a baby in your belly? Is a baby in your belly? So they just kind of, didn't really know what to expect. But then after that first surrogacy journey ended and the second one started, and we, matched with the parents, they understood it a little bit more, and we didn't really say much to them until we transferred. And then from that point on, they were really invested in the baby. But multiple times we, every time we talked about it, it was, the baby's for the parents. And they, I think meeting the parents and they knew whose the baby was, that there wasn't any confusion. And every now and then Ember would be like, oh, but where's our baby? Like, are we gonna have a baby? I want a baby. And we would just direct the attention, like divert attention to, oh, we're gonna get a puppy and we're gonna hit the road in the RV. And then she would forget about it. So, kids will dwell on something as long as you allow them to, but they're very quick to just, divert their attention somewhere else and be like, okay, sounds good. And so we just reminded them often that the baby wasn't for us, it was for their parents.
Oh, so interesting. And then did they get a chance to meet the baby?
They did, yeah. So we discharged the day after delivery. The intended parents were 2 days after delivery, and before they headed back to their home state, we and this was something we wanted to agree on in contract too, that the kids had that time to meet the baby and just had that closure. Because again, I was nervous of how they would handle it, and they were able to meet baby. They saw baby little toes and fingers once we left the house too. Oh, we got you a gift. The baby got you a gift, and we got them some of their favorite toys, and they kind of forgot about it, which was great because I just didn't want it to be a hard transition for them.
Sure. Yeah. You've mentioned a few times your faith in this conversation,
Yeah.
and I would love to hear more, and I'm sure our listeners would love to hear more too, about how your faith maybe guided this process for you, or how you pulled from your faith in moments where you needed a little extra something in the journey. But anything you can talk about how your faith has guided you through surrogacy.
Yeah. So from the beginning, when we felt that calling on our heart, I did feel like it was the Lord that placed it on my heart. And I felt like it was confirmed. That calling was confirmed by my friend when we talked, because I didn't say I want to be a surrogate to anybody. And she out of nowhere was like, you need to do surrogacy. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so from that point, just that confirmation of, feeling led to do this. And then every step of the way, we prayed. I did have a hematoma, definitely a miscarriage scare, and I was so scared because I'd never gone through that before. And so pulling close to the Lord and just praying in those moments, like, God, we believe you called us to this. We believe this is the couple for us in this journey. We were open about that on social media too, that there were times where I was crying, and in all of our YouTube episodes, before our appointments we're praying, after appointments we're praying, and just sharing that vulnerable part of our life, that it is just such a big part of our life and so important to us.
What were some of the most memorable questions that people asked you? Either the myths, the misconceptions, things you maybe laughed at, anything that you can think about?
Oh my gosh, so many. I'm like, reading through the comments some days was, funny, but then there's also moments of like, oh, they just don't know, or, then there's the few that are hurtful. But one of the biggest things was, how can you give baby away? And then we explained that genetically, as a gestational carrier, it's not related to me. People were curious on how transfer worked. And to be honest, when we've first pursued surrogacy, I didn't know. And so explaining how IVF worked, that it was, through in a clinic, through a catheter, that, overseen by a doctor and not something, at times there's like different, processes and how people do it. But that our process was very legitimate. There's attorneys involved, escrow involved, clinics involved, doctors. We're not doing anything shady. This is all like, how it should be. And, people were curious too on how the transition would go with handing baby over. Would I be sad or, sad just not having baby and bringing home baby for ourselves. And let's see what else. Just so curious. Oh, they were curious on how, like, if the husband would be in the delivery room and how that all played out. So many different questions and concerns, some funny and some just, a lack of knowledge of people, because surrogacy is not, I mean, it's becoming more common now, but not widely talked about.
Sure, there is a lack of knowledge, still a lot of myths, still a lot of misconceptions, still a lot of commentary. I mean, in particular, I know one of your posts, which really happened to strike a chord with me, is that you were getting a lot of comments that imply that you were not honest about your recovery and your feelings postpartum, and that you implied that you should be struggling somehow. And you even said it was almost like people that were mad at you, that you were proving that surrogates don't have emotional attachments to the baby, and they were kind of, quote, mad at you.
Yeah, definitely. It goes back to you saying that, becoming a surrogate is definitely a calling, that it's not for everyone. Not everyone can emotionally handle it. Not everyone can physically handle it. And so when, Dean and I did a ton of research early on on how to prepare for it, how to plan for that transition, which is one of the reasons why we decided to hit the road in the RV, because one article I found, and I wish I would have saved it back in 2018 when I looked it up, was spend time with your family, spend time with your kids, focus on your children, make memories, go on a vacation, have a trip together. And we're very thankful that both of us work for ourselves and can work remotely. And so we're like, why not hit the road in the RV and travel and just go wherever, life leads us. And so we set so much in place to prevent any postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. I'm very thankful to say that through my two, our babies' pregnancies or deliveries, I didn't have any postpartum, but I didn't know how this one would go with the transition of, my body doesn't realize that baby's not mine. My body carried the baby, like emotionally and mentally, I know that baby's not mine, but my body doesn't. And so I didn't want, to fall into those feelings. And so we just wanted to be proactive and work against it. And emotionally, yes, there's a strong connection to the baby. We prayed over that baby's life day after day after day. We prayed for their parents. We, were excited for growth and milestones. My daughter talked to the baby. So emotionally, we were definitely invested in their life and in the pregnancy. But I always say that maternally, I wasn't invested because that was never my role to fill. And I feel like that would be very disrespectful to, not only disrespectful, but just not right, because I knew going into it, being a mother wasn't my role to this baby. The baby had a mom, had a dad, and that's their role to fill. And so from the beginning, prior to transfer, knowing that it's not yours changes your perspective so much, because when you go into transfer, it's like, okay, baby's stuck. And then you're sharing the good news with the parents. Okay, beta's good. And then you're talking with the parents about that. Okay, we got a positive pregnancy test. Okay, we made it to 20 weeks. That every step of the way, you're excited for them, for their baby. We're not picking out a name. We're not buying clothes. We're not, planning a nursery. And so it changes. It's so different. I'm living my life, other than sharing our journey. I wasn't, too invested in the pregnancy or in the baby's life, more so just the pregnancy.
And speaking of pregnancy, and you did mention early on that you loved being pregnant and you even loved labor. So tell me, with your surrogacy pregnancy and delivery, what was it like? What was delivery like? And how was your fourth trimester recovery like?
Okay, so my first two, so for our kids, my pregnancies were super easy. I was able to stay active and, work out and travel through all of it. And then delivery and recovery was great. So I was like, why not do this again? So this time, because of the IVF meds, I gained a little bit more weight. I had, morning sickness, never had morning sickness before. So that was very fun. I did get COVID twice during this pregnancy. So then there was that on
Oh,
top of it.
wow.
But I'm very thankful that I still was able to, um, live life to the fullest, to the fullest, be active and work out and travel. We only had certain travel restrictions up to a certain point. So we went to Florida, we went to Wisconsin. And even with the morning sickness and whatnot, I still would say it was a good pregnancy because although we had a hematoma, which is kind of common with IVF pregnancies, other than that, it was a textbook pregnancy. And so I don't have much to complain about. And delivery was great. I actually was induced because our NST baby failed the 39-week NST, and then the BPP, I forget what the score was, but the movement was great, but baby didn't have that 30 seconds of practice breathing. It only had like 5 seconds here and there. And so they decided to induce us, which I was nervous because I never had been induced before. For our two kids, I went into spontaneous labor, delivered very short labors, I think like 4 or 6 hours. And so with this one, I was like, dang, this is weird being admitted, not having contractions, not feeling anything. And then, being induced, it kind of happened quickly that I felt like I didn't have time to like fully process it. But delivery was so quick. And, seeing them in the moment with the baby was like such a memorable experience. And it was crazy delivering right after baby was here. I turned to my husband, I'm like, we did it. And I'm so thankful we got it on camera and just were able to like document that for ourselves. And then afterward, I'm like, oh yeah, baby, where's baby? What gender is baby? Are you good? Okay, sounds good. And then, went back to just spending time with my husband and just it all coming to completion in that moment. Like we did it, like what we set out to do, what we vowed to do, what we agreed to do for this couple, like we brought them their healthy baby boy, and I'm so thankful for that. And yeah, seeing them was so great. And then healing, I felt like it took longer almost, but then again, it wasn't. It was probably 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks to where I was like, all right, feeling back to normal. But I feel like it went slower because we didn't have that, baby to take care of. And I was only worrying about myself, and it just kind of seemed like it drug on for a while.
Yeah, I know a lot of surrogates. It's an interesting period of time because this is often their first experience of going home to heal without
Yeah.
caretaking for a newborn, and it really
Yeah.
can be a different experience. And certainly at Conceivabilities, we structure a whole fourth trimester care and recovery program around them
That's so
just to
good.
make sure they're getting exactly what they need and what their family needs at that time, because it is a
Yeah.
little bit different for everybody. I loved how you talked about the moment where you turn to Dan, you say, we did it. Every
Yeah.
single surrogate will tell you, like, the pinnacle of their experience is the moment that they watch their intended parents become parents. And it's a
Yeah.
joy that just can't be expressed adequately enough in words. You have to see it and feel it to understand it. And surrogates, I mean, that's everything they work towards. It's the joy that they
Oh
love
yeah.
to give others.
Yeah. And they always say that moment right there is what it's all about. And it's that moment that makes them want to do it again. And, give that to another set of parents. And people online were kind of cracking up because I did say, we did it. We did it. And they're like, you mean you did it? And I'm like, yes, I did it. But again, I wouldn't be able to do it without Dan. Like in delivery, him holding my hand, him holding my leg up and doing all my shots throughout the whole journey, throughout delivery, I would not have been able to do it alone. So yes, we did it.
Absolutely, 110%. Sam, you do such a great job, even just not only on your TikTok, but even during this podcast, of just in a very straightforward, easy to understand manner, just educate listeners about surrogacy. What are the facts about surrogacy that you most want people to know?
um ooh yes, we share all of it on social media, on all platforms. And let me real quick before I hit that, was whenever I started, I didn't see a lot of, like I said, steps from the beginning to the end and sharing every step of the way, from medication to transfer to delivery. And so I wanted to share just to give that insight and advice. And that some people think that, oh, I've had a miscarriage, I can't become a surrogate, or oh, I had my tubes tied, I can't become a surrogate. But through this journey, we've learned so much myself. And I always say, I don't know everything. I'm continuing to learn, and, we're learning and growing together. But that's something that I learned, that, oh, you don't have to have your tubes because baby is placed inside your uterus. Or even though you've had a miscarriage, if a doctor reviews your medical records and still determines you're able to do it, then great. Or, okay, you've had 4 kids, can you still become a surrogate? There's different reasons or different things that would disqualify you or, qualify you to do it. And so don't let the fear of, oh, I've had this, or I don't know if I'll qualify, like, just look into if it's something that you feel led to do and you kind of feel called to do. Research it, look into it, and if it's meant to be, it'll happen. And if not, just support those that are doing it and wish them the best, because it's not for everyone. And but there are so many intended parents out there that are waiting for their miracle, that are waiting for someone to help them create a family. And for you to sit back and be like, oh, it's not for me, that you could be the one that completes their family. And so just look into it.
Oh, good advice. Great advice. I don't think
Yeah.
people really understand the number of intended parents out there waiting and hoping
Oh,
for the
it's
right
crazy.
match. If other women are listening to us or they're tuning into some of your social media, what would you tell them if they're thinking about becoming a surrogate and whether or not it's right for them? What piece of advice would you share?
So a few things. First, determine if you're done having your own children. Not to say you can't have more kids after you complete a surrogacy journey, but because pregnancy and delivery and an IVF process in general is just a risky thing, that so much could happen. If you do lose reproductive organs or fertility, and then you kind of would have to mourn that loss of carrying another baby yourself. So I always say, make sure you're done building your family first. Second thing, make sure you meet the requirements, and maybe not in these orders, but make sure you meet the requirements before you get your hopes up, before you get someone else's hopes up that you could be a surrogate for them, because a doctor could look at your records and determine that you're not the best candidate for a surrogacy journey. Yes, maybe you had, your great pregnancies and deliveries, but because of your records, something happened that just wouldn't allow it. Make sure you meet those requirements. And then the third thing, the biggest thing I think, is have support, family support, friend support. At least one support person that will be with you throughout the entire journey. No, not everyone's going to agree with you. We're very thankful that our friends were like, hey, you're crazy, but I'm here for you. I support you, go for it. Our family was supportive through all of it. And so that was important. But yeah, I feel like those 3 things are really important to look at and to take into consideration before you start a journey.
And I have to tell you then, now that you've completed a journey successfully, brought so much joy to a set of intended parents and made a family for them, you've set out on this great adventure with your husband and kids on the road in an RV. What's next?
Everyone wants to know, are we going to do another journey? We've had multiple people message us, and I wish sometimes that I was Oprah and I'm like, you can get a baby, you get a baby, you get a baby. We have talked about a second journey. We prayed about it. Again, prayers and just the Lord confirming that, giving us a peace about it, is very big to us. My biggest concern was how the kids transitioned with it and how I transitioned, and if my husband was okay with me doing another one. When we first started looking to surrogacy, we did not set out to do multiple. I thought it would be one journey, but we have loved just sharing our life and being open in this way and encouraging so many people, inspiring so many people. And because the journey went so well, it's like, why not? Why not do it again? And so we are finishing praying about it, talking about it. We do feel that peace. I think right now we're just waiting on the timing of it. And so maybe you'll see another journey in the future.
Well, that's a teaser if there ever was
right?
one. That's a teaser, all
exactly.
right. I love it. So now that you have one successful journey in your rearview mirror, can you look back on that and say, wow, that was my aha moment as a surrogate? Like, was there anything you can point to where just like it was a watershed moment for you?
I mean, it sounds cliche in the surrogacy world, but that moment when they held their baby and, Dan took some photos in the delivery room after, and just scrolling back through them and just seeing their eyes filled with so much joy and gratitude and thankfulness, and just realizing that that's what it was all about. And then also I've screenshot multiple, like dozens, probably hundreds of messages from intended parents. And those ones stick out to me the most because we're so thankful that we've encouraged hundreds of women to become surrogates. And I want to do a poll one day because I feel like that'd be awesome just to see the impact that we've had with encouraging people to do that. But the messages we receive from intended parents, they've gone through so much hurt, so much loss. They, have lost joy and no peace and no hope. But to see our journey and to see that, hey, I'm a normal person, I'm not perfect. I have ups and downs, but we're showing you that there is that person out there who will, help be your miracle. And they would message such vulnerable things like, hey, we've gone through loss, we've gone through this, this, and this. But I just want to say thank you for sharing, because you're encouraging us that there's hope, that that soon our time is coming. And that for me, like, reading those messages just makes everything worth it. It makes, even going through the miscarriage scare, it makes going through every shot that we had to go through. I hate needles. It makes it all worth it. And that's when not only just the surrogacy journey in general, but sharing our story was that I realized that's why I share. That's why we opened our life up in this way, to get those messages like that and just realize that, their life is being changed from ours. And so we were thankful for that.
It's keeping hope alive for them. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Sam, your story's incredible. Your willingness to be open and vulnerable and to educate and to bring people along with you has been a joy to watch and discover. So thank you, as someone who lives and breathes every day in the world of surrogacy. I think you're doing a great job. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to share.
So I loved Sam's aha moment. I mean, what a wise surrogate. What a pleasure to have her on here. And she really made me think about my own aha moment from this podcast. And as I was going through the inventory of all the terrific things that we talked about, what really stood out to me was this unspoken thread of assumptions, and that folks should never make assumptions about surrogacy, whether it's someone's motivation to be a surrogate, whether or not they will qualify to be a surrogate, what kind of relationship they'll ultimately have, either as a surrogate with their intended family or with an agency or with perhaps their audience on social media. There's a lot of myths that swirl around this process. And folks' reactions will be different from time to time. They're unpredictable. So my biggest aha moment and takeaway from this time with Sam was, whatever your thoughts are about surrogacy, don't make any assumptions. Go in with a pure heart, with a clear motive, with great intentions, and the rest will fall into place where it should. So listeners, thank you for joining me today on All Things Conceivable. It's been a pleasure to have you. Until next time, take care.
At Conceivabilities, we believe that everyone who wants to become a parent can. Our agency has helped build thousands of families for over 25 years. Whether you are an intended parent ready to fulfill your family destiny, a surrogate answering your calling, or an egg donor wanting to expand what's possible in your life, we are your people. See how matching matters. Learn more by joining our Surrogacy Learning Center community at surrogacylearningcenter.conceivabilities.com.